Good morning, everyone. I'm Kevin Allen, and I'm joined by my usual broadcast partner, former NHL defenseman Tom Laidlaw, who played 11 seasons for the New York Rangers and Los Angeles Kings. This is the Laidlaw and Allen Report. Come to you twice a week to talk all things hockey. And Tom, plenty to talk about today. I want to start off with Evander Kane. And, it's been a couple of days now since, or more than that, actually, since we found out that he'll have a 21 game suspension. And I wonder, the 21 games sounds long. I wonder if this is a situation where they felt like they really couldn't do much for what he's done to cause trouble for the Sharks. But now they have him, dead to right on falsifying his vaccination card, and so we'll just throw the book at him for that. And it sort of covers everything that he's kind of done. And but you don't hear any squawking about it. So, I think everybody sort of understands that this has been gone on too long, and it's not. I mean, these are things that don't necessarily get you into the criminal courts or anything of that nature, but it's very disruptive to a team, to say the least.
Yeah, and it's suspended without pay as well for, so basically over a quarter of his pay. So that's a lot of money for a guy, again, who was bankrupt and going through the marital problems and everything. And I want to be very careful because I don't know all the facts, but talking to some people who are more gambling people than I am, again, they did an investigation and there was no proof that he bet on hockey games. There's no question. He has admitted that he has a gambling problem. But the guys, and again, there's no evidence. So I want to be very careful and say this, but the people out there say, listen, if he gambled on hockey, he must have been, it's not, you don't have to be that smart to make sure that there's no record of you gambling on hockey games. But again, we can't accuse him of that because he did an investigation and never came out. So, but I mean, there's a guy needs some help, right? I mean, he's a gambling addict, the marital problems, the way he's conducting himself. I hope he gets help. Like, Carey Price went into that program that the NHL and the NHL Players Association has. And it appears to me that if he's not already in it, Evander Kane, he should be in it. But
yeah, and that program too, and I think it's important to note that, it covers a lot of situations.
Yep.
I mean, I think when it first came out, people thought, well, that's where you go for drug and alcohol rehab. But it goes beyond that. It goes beyond, into mental illness issues and the family problems. There's just so many different reasons why you can enter that program. And it's a wonderful program. Like, I think this is a great benefit for players, that whatever your issue is, from minor to major, you have a place to go, something to turn to that you can seek help. So, but the only problem with it, and I've kind of always admonished people on social media to, don't, you can't speculate about what the issue is. To me, that's just awful. And why people do that, I don't know. And, I saw it with the Jonathan Toews situation when he was ill, where people, were just speculating on all kinds of illnesses that he might have. My Uncle Fred had similar, situation, and he had this, and, I've heard about this, issue and that issue. And, that's just, why can't we just leave well enough alone? Why do we feel like we have to comment? And, I'm in the business where I understand that public figures, don't have the privacy protection that that others might have. But
well, it's a great point too, Kevin. You and I, we were working together closely, both as friends and professionals, when I went through it with Sheldon Kennedy when he was sexually abused by Graham James, his junior coach, and that he went into the program. And even Mike O'Connell, who was the general manager of the Boston Bruins, we'd signed a contract with Boston. I could not tell him, and he was. I don't blame him at all, but we signed him to the contract. Then Sheldon went into the program, and I couldn't disclose what the problem was. So I think he was speculating. All I could say to him was, "Listen, Mike, it's not drugs or alcohol. I cannot tell you anymore." And most people, like you, knew a lot of the details, and you kept it quiet. We did have one, and that is a good example because we had one reporter, and I won't mention his name. That's a long time ago. I believed it was a real mistake. He found out somehow, and came to me and asked me. He said, "Tom, is this what's going on?" I said, "Listen, I cannot speak to it." And he went ahead and wrote it in the papers. And the danger with that kind of situation there is that, that was very unique. But the danger of that kind of situation, that there's young kids who either were contemplating suicide or had committed suicide with something like that, and it was. To come out and write it and not understand. To be honest with you, I didn't understand the ramifications of sexual abuse at that time. I mean, I was a old hockey player, farm boy from Canada, and when Sheldon first came to me and told me about it, I was like, wow! I thank God they had the program to deal with it properly. And since then, obviously, I've learned a lot about it. But yeah, it's. I mean, again, that's an extreme situation, but that's why it's so important that people don't talk or speculate. But
well, it's really a positive thing that we've. I don't know, stumbled might be the right word. We've stumbled upon a program that's all encompassing because the problems of modern society are the same problems that hockey players face. They're part of society, and, drug and alcoholism and family issues and illness within the family, all those things, it impacts that you're not immune from having bad things happen to you just because you're a well-paid athlete. And
isn't that true? Like, people do think, especially you tie the money into it, think, well, geez, he's making millions of dollars, things got to be fine. It's irrelevant.
No, it is. I mean, I always used to tell people too, I think it's less so now, I've noticed, but people equate salaries to expectations of perfection.
Yeah.
And I always used to remind people, when you're playing in the middle of a hockey game and a 229-pound defenseman is flying at your head, you don't give any thought to the fact that you're making $5 million.
Yeah, it's very true.
A season. You're just trying to preserve your head. So.
And even when confidence means, in all walks of life, but in professional sports, confidence is such a huge part of it. And when you lose your confidence, again, you're right. It doesn't matter if you make it $5 million or $10 million a year. If you lost your confidence, you've lost your confidence. And that's
I find it. I just shake my head when I hear people say, you're getting paid $5 million. You got to hang on to that pass.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, whether you're making $5 million or 250,000.
Yeah.
A pass that's zipping across the field that you're trying to get your hands on. And the other thing is I always say to people, if I'm in a living room, why don't you catch that pass? Well, I always say, well, I think that was his intention. I don't like, nobody comes in and says, I'm going to drop this pass.
Yeah, definitely. So. Susan brings up a good point here too. Sad news about Mike Bossy battling cancer. In the small world, if you're in it, I don't know if you watch NCIS, maybe you do. It's a military show. Do you ever watch NCIS? No, I don't know.
No. Well, anyway, they have Gibbs, who's the head of the NCIS, and he always says there's no such thing as coincidence. By coincidence, yesterday, before this announcement came out, I decided, I mentioned to you before that I'm going to do a series of stories, trying to sort of recapture why great players were great, before the time of a lot of younger fans. Like, if you're in your late 30s or 40s, you really didn't see Mike Bossy. Yeah. So anyway, I've assembled a list of players I wanted to do. And first on that list that I started working on was Mike Bossy.
Oh.
I had gone before the game yesterday, and I went to Jim Devellano, who of course was the super scout assistant general manager for the Islanders when Bossy was there, and I interviewed him, and he told me all sorts of great stories about Mike Bossy. And then I went up to the press box, turned on my computer, and I saw the announcement that Mike Bossy says he has lung cancer. So very sad, and I wish him well. That's a tough fight, but so many advances have been made in cancer that I'm far more optimistic than I would have been, say, 10 or 15 years ago. So,
and he was one of those athletes too that to play against him, it was so frustrating because we look at him like Rick Middleton was like this, Joey Mullen was like this, where you look at these guys, and they weren't the best skaters. They looked like the puck was bouncing all over the place. We had this great playoff game where Kenny Morrow scored the winning goal. The Rangers and Islanders played, and it was my job to be out there against Mike Bossy a lot of the time. And he scored a goal on us where I stepped up at the blue line, and I had the puck, and I felt like I'm just going to tip it by because it's Mike Bossy right there. I don't want to overhandle it. He's going to win. So I tipped it, and it goes right into his foot and bounces out, and then he goes in and scores. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't think I could do anything different. I did what I was supposed to be doing, but he just had that puck luck. But again, it wasn't. You really can't call it luck because he just did it all the time. So, he was.
Well, I mean, puck luck to me sometimes. I mean, sometimes it is just pure luck. A thing bounces correctly, but there is a sense of anticipation, don't you think, that the great goal scorers have, that they sort of just have a feeling about where the puck's going to go.
Yeah.
I mean, Gretzky certainly was like that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I know.
He always knew where the puck was going before the puck knew where it was going.
That's true. Like me when I played against Gretzky a lot, and then when he finally got traded to LA and playing with him in practice, I'm thinking to myself, like I was pretty confident in my game as a defensive defenseman. You're playing against Wayne Gretzky, even though it's practice, you're gonna crank it up a little bit, and he would do things like. And at first, he's like, that's luck. There's no way he's going to be able to do that again. But again, he does it, like you said, does it all the time. He knew where the puck was. And,
the one thing I've noted in all the years I've covered sports is that the best players don't entertain the possibility of pilot error. They think they're always going to make.
So Gresh is feeling much better about himself, his health and everything like that. So he's back with the comments. So thank you, Ron. I appreciate it. That I was the same kind of player as Mike Bossy. I appreciate that comment. But
yeah.
Hey, Kev, I'm looking at the standings here. I'm seeing a lot of teams that are like high up in the standings that we didn't anticipate. And some teams
like Buffalo still hasn't lost yet. They beat the Canucks. That gives them 3 wins. Now, I would point out that Buffalo's wins have not come against the cream of the crop in terms of the top teams.
And how about Montreal? They're 0-4. People are already. I was listening to NHL radio yesterday, and they're already talking about Patrick Roy coming in as possible coach, GM, or president, or trainer. Or what?
I thought that really the ultimate of what it's like to be in Montreal was during the final, when I read on social media a fan wrote, "I don't care whether Ducharme wins the cup or not. He should be gone." so like here he is in the Stanley Cup final, and they're trying to rid themselves of their coach. But this was anticipated. You can't lose one of your favorite players, for rightfully so, Shea Weber. You can't lose a goalie like Carey Price. Philip Danault was really kind of the centerpiece of their defensive excellence in terms of, we've talked about all the time, but when you talk about defense, it isn't just the 6 defensemen, it's everybody on the ice. And he was a great, checking third line center who's now trying to be a number 2 center in Los Angeles. Those are significant losses.
Yeah.
The momentum that you had, it's all gone.
And it really was. There was one of those years for them. They deserved it. They won the games they needed to win, but it was one of those years where they were kind of a surprise story to get to the finals too. So it wasn't like they were one of the favorite teams. So no, you're right.
And I think it's going to come down now that they're going to be among, and there's been many teams that are, instead of like building to the cup where they're going to be there a while and contend, they're kind of one and done. We've seen them, the Devils got to the final several years ago. We've had some teams that have just kind of gotten up there and got in. San Jose Sharks come to mind as well, where, they made it to the final. There are teams like that.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about the Oilers because it looks to me like they're going to score 1.2 billion goals this season. Draisaitl, poor Draisaitl. You talk about living in a shadow. You're on the same team with Connor McDavid, who's, the most talented player in the league, no question about it. And Draisaitl, 4-point night last night.
Yeah.
I look at his numbers. They're off the chart as well. However, same problem again. Mike Smith had to leave. We got Koskinen. We're giving up a lot of goals. Anaheim, worst scoring team in the league last year, got 5 against the Oilers.
Yeah.
Got 5 against the Oilers. So they needed 6 to win.
Yeah, I know.
And, they can get 6.
Yeah.
But, that's not the way you want to play.
Yeah. And I know. And I think we're both huge fans of Kenny Holland, the general manager there. He's been there for 2 years now or 3 years now. And things have gone. I mean, he brings in Duncan Keith, the veteran guy. I like that move. Losing that Larson was a tough one for me. That's with that steady defenseman. So it's like I think he's trying to change that culture there of like, because I really believe you don't have to be the most talented team in the league to be a good defensive team, right? It's about commitment and good coaching.
Yeah.
I think they've got good coaching there too. But it just hasn't seemed to sunk in yet for whatever it is. Maybe they just rely so much on those two guys scoring points and say, well, listen, we know they're going to get the points. So we got a chance.
That's such an excellent point, though, about that. It's not, you're not looking for defensive talent, when you're out and trying to build a defense. Like, that, I don't know if that even exists. Maybe it does. But, you certainly want elite level defensemen with tools. You want size, you want skating, you want all those things, but you just need a system and a commitment to want to play that. And, we've all seen teams that just play well in the playoffs because all of a sudden there's a pride that kicks in. And I bet this well, but by the way you play, a pride gets in. If that puck's coming in our zone, I'm going to get it out.
Yeah.
Right now. Not fool around with it, but I'm going to get that puck out. And
that's what we talk about a lot when you see those teams that learn to win, right? Like the Washington Capitals, the great teams they had, and watching Alex Ovechkin in particular, he's a fantastic player, and the effort was there, the heart was there before they finally won the cup. But it was him learning, just like you said, like, okay, my job is to get the puck out here. It's not to make a big hit right now or shoot a big shot. Is to get the puck out of my zone right now. That's the first step. Next step is now get it through the neutral zone. Next step is getting the offensive zone. So yeah.
Speaking of that,
yes,
Uncle Barry got it done yesterday. Uncle Barry Trotz. Barry Trotz's team got back on the track again. After some stumbling out of the gate, right? Came back and was a 4-1 victory. Played more like the Islanders that we expect.
Right.
Now,
but around here, actually 0 people care because of Igor Shesterkin, particularly with the New York Rangers. I don't know if you saw that overtime game the other night in Toronto. They got outshot like 41-23, something like that. He was incredible. It's a great game to watch, and it wasn't like the Rangers didn't do well. It's just that Toronto, what's his name? Austin Matthews played fantastic. Toronto was excellent, but Shesterkin just was, and the way he played, I don't know if you want to put him in the Vasilevsky category yet, but it wasn't just stopping the shots. He was like under control, calm, and playing his angles, square to the puck. It wasn't like he was just hanging in there. It was like you just assumed he was going to stop the puck. He was playing so well. He was good.
Yeah. Well, I think this has always been anticipated. He came over here with a high reputation. It's it's funny. It's cyclical, obviously, but we had a period when everybody wanted a Finnish goalie. Now I think we all want Russian goalies.
Yeah, why is that? I wonder why that works.
Well, I mean, I think it's sort of inspirational when you get one goalie that plays well, and then everybody kind of wants to emulate him. And Russia's had Vasilevsky's been over here a while, and
sure.
Guys have I'm sure tightened their their game a little bit, and now the Russian goalies are all stepping up. But I think it took Varlamov a while to find it, but now he looks the rage. And even though he didn't look it in the first 2 games, I think Sorokin is a very talented goalie.
I love watching. Sorry, I bounced back to the Rangers here. I've been watching the Jared Gallant because I'm such a big fan of his. I've been watching his press conferences, and they're hilarious because he doesn't try to be funny. Like he'll get asked, he gives himself so little credit. It's always somebody else. So particularly if he's asked, okay, who's playing tomorrow in net? He goes, well, I'll go talk to Benny. Benoit Allaire. Like he admits that whether it's totally accurate or not, he puts it on Benoit Allaire. It's like he gives him total credit, like basically saying, listen, it's Benoit Allaire. He's the best goalie coach maybe there's ever been. He's gonna tell me who he thinks should be playing, and I'm gonna probably listen. So I'm just such a huge fan of Gallant. So like even whether they win or lose, He doesn't, he doesn't rip into the players and make it say that they need to do something else. It's their game. He isn't over talking all the things he knows about the game of hockey. So he's good.
Yeah, no, I like him as well, and I think he's kind of got that kind of homespun analysis of what he does. And he's, I've told the story before, but I'll just retell it that, one time during their run to the Stanley Cup final, he was talking about the power play, and he goes, I know all about the analytics, and I look at it, and, I know the power play isn't going well, but when I'm standing on the ice and I'm watching the guys, it kind of looks like a power play to me. So I think if we just wait, they'll start scoring, and lo and behold, the next game, they got going. He said, it looks right to me, so I think it is right.
Yeah, he's good.
If it didn't look right, I would change it, but it looks right. Yeah. And, there's a lot to be said for that. Yeah. I wanted to go down the path because we haven't talked about them really in years. But Detroit Red Wings have also come out of the blocks at 2-0-1, and I'm going to write about this today. But Steve Yzerman has been with that team now for 3 seasons, but really, this is the start of the Steve Yzerman era because he has 2 of his first-round picks on this team and Moritz Seider, and he's brought them in. And the way Steve Yzerman has approached it, and he's been really, putting a lot of emphasis on this is that, I'm bringing my guys up when they're ready. And I'm not handing them a spot. They have to earn the spot. I'm not going to just throw them in there and see what we got. Yeah. And Lucas Raymond played very well in training camp. He had 6 points in his first 3 games. Then he hit the wall a little bit, but he was still getting chances. He made the team. Of course, Moritz Seider was evident that he was strong. He was the Swedish defenseman of the year, even though he's a German player. And, of course, he was very good in the World Championships. He is now on their top pairing. He plays their second highest minutes. He hasn't even really engaged yet with the offense, and he has 3 assists in 3 games. And he hasn't even really got started with the offense. I think he's just trying to play defense. He gets better every game, and he is going to help that team. And I know you'll appreciate this. Probably more than Lucas Raymond will, and Raymond may eventually be a 30-goal scorer. But Moritz Seider is a big physical guy who wants to hit. He can play offense. He can clear out the creases. He's a good one-on-one defender who's only going to get better. Yeah. He's going to have He's going to have some Hedman in him. Where he's going to get up the ice. He's going to get back. He's going to be in the play all the time. And, this team is not going to compete for a playoff spot this season, but they're better. They really are. They were one of the worst offensive teams in the league, and now they've come out of the gate with 13 goals in their first 3 games. And they've played their last 2 games with Thomas Greiss in goal. And, when I was talking before about if you get the puck in, we're going to get it out. That's how they're playing defense. Yeah. And Nick Leddy, a veteran player, who we think
about him. That's right. That was a good pickup there.
We think offense when we think Leddy, but really his transition game has really helped the defense because he can skate the puck out of trouble.
Yeah, he is one of those kind of new age defensemen, but not necessarily new, but it's defensemen now. That's where they're really valuable, right? Get the puck out of our zone. It's not in a zone they can't cross. Yeah.
Well, and the other thing is on their power play, which was horrible and still hasn't, it's not like it's one of the better power plays in the league today. But before they couldn't even gain the zone. And guess what? Nick Leddy can get it in the zone.
He's one of those surprising guys. Like, maybe it's because he played with the Islanders and it's not covered as much. But it's like one of those guys you just don't realize how good he is until you watch him, right? He does a lot of good stuff, yeah.
Well, there's a great video online that I remember from a couple of years ago. I'm assuming it's still on there. Where he caught Connor McDavid from behind. And I remember doing a story on it, talking with John Tavares about it. And the players, just their jaws all dropped. Yeah. Because Connor McDavid was flying down the ice. All of a sudden, you just saw Leddy. And I'm not sure he's still that fast. But he has, if he's lost anything, it's just a little bit. because he motors pretty good, and I think that's helping that Red Wings as well. They're a good skating team. Yzerman insisted upon that, and now Leddy just fits nicely into that. And Lucas Raymond got his first NHL goal last night. He got a present from the Blue Jackets for getting that goal. They plastered him against the a glass a little later in that period. He had to leave for concussion protocol, but when it was time to come and talk to the media, he was out there. He apparently passed the concussion protocol, and he says, "I'm good. I don't even know what happened."
Nice.
So I'm good.
And so what's going on with what's his name Bertuzzi there with the whole vaccine?
Well, that was I did my 5 takeaways last night. One of my takeaways is it's suddenly become. I mean, Bertuzzi is off to an incredible start.
Right, yeah.
5 goals. He already has. He's got a couple of assists. He's playing great. Could have had another goal that I remember where he was on a breakaway and just missed a corner. And you know what? This Saturday he's not going to be able to go to Canada. I mean, and he's on their top line now, and he's playing on the line with Lucas Raymond.
So now if the team starts losing and he's not in the lineup,
I think it's just doubly bad because here's Lucas Raymond trying to fit in. They put him on that top line because they want him to grow with Larkin and Bertuzzi. And last night when he got plastered, Larkin and Bertuzzi were right. They were tag teaming that guy. It was Roslovic, and they went right after him. And it's a good line. It's worked. The chemistry's been nice. I think Lucas Raymond feels comfortable in that line. And now all of a sudden they're going to go into Montreal and the kid's first road game. So it'll be Raymond's first road game. No Bertuzzi, who when there's trouble, Bertuzzi's first in line. Always first in line.
There's pressure on Montreal to play better too. You think Montreal's going to be fired up?
Yeah. So it's really going to be. It really brought home. I thought last night, what this is going to cost the Red Wings.
So the team's playing better. They're feeling good about themselves. Bertuzzi's playing a huge role. They now go on the road and they lose. Let's say they lose. Now you can't just say it's just because Bertuzzi's there, but the fact is, if he's not there, now they lose. And then they lose. And that's next time.
It screws up 2 lines.
Yeah,
because all of a sudden now we got to bring up somebody from the second line, and now that line's off. Yeah. So I don't know if it's Zadina or Fabre, but and Pius Suter, I think they were really excited about him. He played very well in training camp, and he has not, 3 games. I haven't even noticed him. So. I don't know what's going on. They got to get him going because he's a good hockey player, real smart player. So,
you just imagine the locker room too, and like you said, it seems like Bertuzzi's a real popular guy,
very
player. Popular. But you start to lose games, and guys eventually kind of I don't know how it starts. They're all sitting together at dinner, and they start talking like, "What's going on? Why isn't he getting the vaccine? We miss him. We need to, we got a shot at playing well here. We're winning games. He's a big part of it." And again, I don't think the guys necessarily would. I hope would like hate him or turn against him, but I mean that's what hockey players do. They sit around, they start talking about stuff, and it's gonna be
they can talk themselves out of winning.
Oh, totally, yes,
all the time. Well,
I tell the story all the time how with the Rangers, and we practice this Rye Playland, and it's close to where I live now, and we come to the conclusion we were losing because the coaches never spent enough time in the locker room. Their entrance to their office was somewhere else, so they changed the locker room around so the coaches would have to come through the office. Well. A while later, we were losing again, and we come to the conclusion that the coaches were in the locker room too much. So we changed it around again. And honest to God, when you're doing it, you're going through it as a player. You really convince yourself because everybody else agrees. Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. You really start to think to yourself, that's the problem. And then you look back at it later on, and you're laughing at yourself like,
last night I got home from the game I was at, and I'm looking at the scores, and of course the Penguins lost to the Dallas Stars, and I just chuckled to myself about because that morning I was thinking, boy, did we really miss the boat on the Penguins? They just look like $1 million out there. They got their scoring goals and everything. And then they go against Dallas, a team that hasn't looked very good coming out of the game, and they lose 2-1. And I thought about gosh, was it the 1980s or maybe it was the 90s where all of a sudden everybody was talking about biorhythms that, players, whether they, their biorhythms were right. And that's why that would explain why, sometimes they would go well and sometimes they wouldn't.
I know.
So, I mean, this is why we love sports. And, there's a lot of luck involved, and there's, sometimes you just don't guess right.
Yeah, and it's a lot of it is too, like we've talked, like to win at any level. Say we're talking about the National Hockey League, obviously. I mean, it takes a real commitment from every player on the team to do all those little things right. Whether you see a team win like 10 games in a row or 15 games in a row, guys are coming to the rink every night and sacrificing, you making those little plays, and now you start to play better all the time. And then you say, okay, well, now I can take a little bit of a shortcut here. Instead of making that smart 10-foot pass, I'm going to try to pass 50 feet across the ice. And now you get picked off, and now those mistakes happen over and over, and now you start you're not winning like you were. And that's just human nature. It happens all the time. If guys could really play to their 100% perfect game every game, well, they never lose. But it's just not the reality of sports. And you make decisions out there. Coaches make decisions, players make decisions, and sometimes they're the wrong decisions. But that's, I think that's just the difference in teams.
Well, but then you got the other team that if they play it right, then you can't win that game. It reminds me of in the 1960s, getting a football playbook, and on the beginning of the football playbook, it says if every person does their job, on every play, all these plays should go for a touchdown.
Right.
But what it doesn't say is, well, if one guy on the defense does his job and disrupts what you're trying to do, then none of these plays will go for a touchdown. So they don't mention that. They don't mention that there's another team out there that's basically trying to prevent you from doing what you hope to accomplish.
Totally. Okay, so I need to discuss something with you. I think I'm getting an addictive personality with these YouTube videos. There's this, I believe we talked about it before the show. There's this guy, I don't know if it's the same guy all the time or not, but he comes on, he does this karate chop thing, and he's got sound effects like, and he's either karate chopping his dog or his wife. It's just, there's something wrong with me. I guess I get addicted with these videos, and I can't stop watching it. They're just so funny. There's another one too where there's a saying, I don't know where it came from, where the guy says, some guy will yell, he goes, "Is that a live cougar in the car?" And he has this not necessarily older woman, but a woman. So guy's there with his wife or girlfriend, whoever it is, and he says, yeah, it's a live cougar. It's talking about you gotta ride in danger with a live cougar in the car. It's the funniest thing. You've got to watch. I'll send the video to you. It's just hilarious.
Well, maybe it's one of those things where you had to be there. You guys see it.
Definitely. Seriously, I get watching it. Just I sit there and they're just all different versions of it, and I can't stop. So.
I'm more like Susan Brooks. Like we watch television shows.
Yeah.
So I was actually driving home last night, and I was listening to a discussion. They had a professor on there and someone else talking about that Korean TV shows are just becoming huge in the United States. And there's various channels most of which I had never heard of, where you can get all these. And they had people calling in and said, I've been hooked for, just like you did, saying about the YouTube videos. They'd say, I've been hooked on these Korean dramas for 8 years and 10 years and going on. Right. And the guy that was a professor was pointing out that, languages at colleges, the study of them, it's disappearing. Like nobody goes to become an Italian expert or a German expert or a Latin or a Greek. But the one language that you can still teach at a college level that people are getting into is Korean, because the Korean version of, movies and their Hollywood is so hot right now. And people want to learn it so they can, catch all the, the subtleties and everything else. And I'm thinking, how could this whole world be going on that I'm totally unaware of? But like, I don't know anything about Korean, and I watch a lot of television. It'd be interesting to see if Susan has caught on to that, because, there were a lot of people who seemed all pretty smart who, have been watching this and, talking. They were able to talk about all the different.
And Mr. Grisher and I hadn't even discussed that. So obviously he's watching it too. You've got to watch it. It's on. I get it on Facebook, and these videos. I don't know. God, just thinking about it just makes me die laughing. It's just hilarious. And I guess it's because it's the same thing over and over. Like there's another one where a guy goes out in his front deck or back deck or wherever he is. It seems like it's the morning, take a cup of coffee, and he yells, "Morning, my neighbors!" And then the neighbor yells out from someplace, "F you." Well, he doesn't say F you. He actually uses the real word, F you. And the neighbor goes, "Oh yeah, F you too." And it's the same person saying it, and people just have different settings to it. I don't know why I find that so funny. It's the same thing. You know what's coming. But it's
whatever floats your boat, like I said. So whatever
works.
Wonder
about me a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the old days, if you were a male in this country, you either watch sports or you watch nothing. Right. And I think we kind of moved away from that. But for you, it's I watch YouTube or I watch sports.
That's true. It is true. That's the way it's evolved.
Yeah. And
Susan, she has not heard of the Korean.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, if Susan has heard about it, then it's I feel better. I feel better because I know her and I have similar taste in television. But I was just stunned by this, that I'm listening to all these people calling in about. One woman said, she says, "I'm 56 years old and my mother has moved in from me. She's 84." Right. And she moved in about 7 years ago, and every day she said we watch at least a couple of Korean shows. And then another guy called in and said that he and his wife are in their 80s and they sit on the couch, hold hands, and watch the Korean. Drama.
Susan does now. She's got the different one here. You love the guy who tries to eat corn on the cob with a power drill in his front teeth. See, now there you go, Susan. Yeah.
Now Susan's got the spirit. So Susan is so eclectic that she is a traditional television watcher, and she's with you on the YouTube.
Yeah.
So you got to like that. So for me, it's a time issue. Like I don't have any more time in my day.
I know, and I really don't either. I'm serious. It's addictive. I don't turn it on because once I start, I have to watch like 50 of these videos.
Well, speaking of that, I think we've run out of time today. I've got to get ready for my writing day. But speaking of that, if you want to read me, I'm at hockeybuzz.com and DetroitHockeyNow.com. And Tom?
And if you want to listen to the radio version of this show, you can go to radio.co at 365 Sports. Again, that's radio.co at 365 Sports. Everybody have a great day and watch those YouTube videos. Let's go. Everybody.